Oh, that's the wrong website. That's pornography. So, hi guys. So, this video was like requested by one of my friends because, I don't know. He wanted me to read like, you guys know like that, there's like an Instagram. It's called scarythreads.s. Well, like, yeah, like he wants me to read that. And then, but in the dark. But excuse me, because I am really scared of the dark. I'm scared. I don't want to read it. Okay, let me just... Okay, so this one is called, I'm scared, like... Actually, I don't even know if no one's home. Hold up. Coast is clear. My brother is home. I'll be right back. Well, I'm not gonna turn off the lights because, fuck, I look like getting possessed. Anyway. Put on my cover, though, because... just in case I see something outside my window. Anyway, this is called 8 Feet Tall. Ready? 8 Feet Tall, or Hachis, I don't even know how to say that. Is a Japanese urban legend about a tall woman who abducts children. She is 8 feet tall, wears a long white dress, and makes a sound like po, 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 po. Anyway, okay. Okay, my grandparents lived in Japan. Every summer, of course Japan is where the scary shit happens. Anyway, every summer my parents would take me there on holiday to visit them. They lived in a small village and they had a big backyard, my bad. I loved to play there during the summer. When we arrived, my grandparents always welcomed me with open arms. I was their only grandchild, so they spoiled me. The last time I saw them was the summer when I was 8 years old. Ooh. As usual, my parents booked a flight to Japan and we drove from the airport to my grandparents' house. They were delighted to see me and had a lot of little presents to give me. My parents wanted to have some time by themselves, so after a few days, they took a trip to another part of Japan, leaving me in the care of my grandma and grandpa. Why would you leave somebody to take care of your grandma? They're old and this girl's 8. I was playing out in the backyard. My grandparents were inside the house. It was a hot summer's day. I lay down on the grass to rest. I stared up at the clouds and enjoyed the feeling of the soft rays of sun and the gentle breeze. Just as I was about to get up, I heard a strange sound. Po, oh my god, it's the girl! Okay, po, you know, you get it, okay. I didn't know what it was, and it was hard to figure out where it was coming from. It sounded almost like somebody was making the noise It sounded almost like somebody was making the noise themselves, as if they were saying po, 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 over and over again in a deep masculine voice. So they were po, po. That's what they were saying. Anyway. I was looking around, searching for the source of the noise, when I suddenly noticed something on top of the tall hedges that enclosed the backyard. Oh my gosh. It was a straw hat. Damn, country boot ass. It wasn't resting on the hedge, it was behind it. That's where the sound was coming from. Then the hat began to move, as if somebody was wearing it. The hat stopped at a small gap in the hedge, and I could see a face peering through. It was a woman, but the hedges were high, almost 8 feet tall. Excuse me. Long body ass! I was surprised at how tall the woman was. I wondered if she was wearing stilts or some sort of huge high-heeled shoes. Then a split second later, she walked off, and the strange noise disappeared with her, fading into the distance. Hold up, is this true? Because if it's true, I'm gonna not read this anymore. Because, I'm kind of scared. Bewildered, I got up and wandered back into the house. Thank God she didn't go look for her, like most of these people on horror movies do. My grandparents were in the kitchen drinking tea. I sat down at the table, and after a while, I told my grandparents what I seen. They weren't really paying attention to me until I mentioned that distinctive sound. Po, 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 you get it. As soon as I said that, both of them suddenly froze. Grandma's eyes grew wide and she covered her mouth with her hand. Grandpa's face became very serious and he grabbed me by the arm. "This is very important," he said in an intense voice. "You must tell us exactly how tall was she?" "As tall as the garden hedge," I replied, beginning to get scared. My grandfather bombarded me with questions. Where was she standing? When did this happen? What did you do? Did she see you?" I tried to answer all his questions as best as I could. He suddenly rushed out to the hallway and made a phone call. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I looked over at my... He suddenly rushed out to the hallway and made a phone call. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I looked over at my grandma and she was trembling. Oh, poor granny. Imagine her trembling. Grandpa came barging back into the room and spoke to my grandmother. "I've got to go out for a while," he said. "You stay here with the child. Don't take your eyes off him for a second." I thought he was a her. Okay, guys. It's a he. I thought it was her. "What's going on, Grandpa?" I cried. He looked at me with a sad expression in his eyes and he said, "You've been liked by Hachi Skuma." That girl, that tall feet girl. I don't even know how to say her name. With that, he hurried out, got into his truck, and drove off. I turned to my grandmother and cautiously asked, "Who's Hachi Shikonshima?" "Don't worry," she replied in a shaking voice. "Grandpa will do something. There's no need for you to worry." Oh, really? As we... I'm gonna slap you.
Just read.
Cassandra. If she opens that door, I'm gonna slap the shit out of you. Sorry. As we sat nervously in the kitchen waiting for my grandfather to come back, she explained what was happening. She told me there was a dangerous thing that was haunting the area. They called it Hachishakanshima. Don't know how to pronounce that. Because of its height. In Japanese, that thing means 8 feet tall. It takes on the appearance of an extremely tall woman and it makes the sound like po, po, po in a deep male voice. It appears slightly different depending on who sees it. Oh, really? Some say it looks like a haggard old woman. That's not a nice word. And others say it looks like a girl. Others say it looks like a girl in a white funeral shroud. One thing that never changes is its height and the sound it makes. A long time ago, it was captured by monks. And they managed to confine it in a ruined building on the outskirts of the village. They trapped it using 4 small religious statues called Jesus, that they placed at the north, south, east, and west. West. Oh, I'm confused. What? After they did that, it wasn't supposed to move from there. Somehow it managed to escape. The last time it appeared was 15 years ago. My grandmother said that anyone who saw... Oh, mami kukuy. My grandmother said that anyone who saw 8 feet tall was destined to die within a few days. He's dead. It all sounded so crazy. I wasn't sure what to believe. When Grandpa came back, there was an old woman with him. She introduced herself as Kei-san and handed me a small crumpled piece of parchment saying, "Here, take this and hold it." Then she and Grandpa went upstairs to do something. Oh, you know what they're doing. Oh. I was left alone in the kitchen with my grandma again. Damn, they got her ass. They got her out here. The grandpa cheated on her. Oh, big head ass. Needed to go to the toilet. Granny Granny. Okay. Granny followed me to the bathroom and wouldn't let me shut the door. I was beginning to get really frightened by all this. The grandma was watching him take the toilet, was taking a poop. The grandma was watching him. That's disrespectful. He was really frightened because his grandma was watching him. After a while, Grandpa and Kason took me upstairs and brought me into my bedroom. Oh my God! Oh, no! The windows were covered in newspapers. Oh, and lots of ancient runes had been written on them. There were small bowls of salt in all four corners of the room, and a small Buddha figure placed at the center of the room on top of a wooden box. There was also a bright blue bucket. What's the bucket for? I asked. That's for your pee and poo. A bucket? Oh my. Kason sat me down on my bed and said, soon the sun will be setting, so listen carefully. You must stay in this room until tomorrow morning. You must not come out under any circumstances until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Your grandmother and your grandfather will not speak to you or call you until then. Remember, do not leave the room for any reason until then. I will let your parents know what is going on. She spoke in such a grave tone that all I could do was quietly nod my head. That's scary. So what is he gonna eat? You have to follow Kason's instructions to the letter, Grandpa said, and never let go of the parchment she gave you. And if anything happens, pray to Buddha, and make sure you lock this door when we leave. They walked out into the hallway, and after saying goodbye to them, I closed the bedroom door and locked it. I turned on the TV and tried to watch it, but I was so nervous I felt sick to my stomach. Grandma had left some snacks and rice balls for me, but I couldn't eat them. I felt like I was in prison, and I was very depressed and scared. You were depressed? I laid down on the bed and waited. Before I knew it, I was asleep. When I woke up, it was just after 1 a.m. All of a sudden, I realized that something was tapping on the window. Tap, 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 tap. Help. I felt the blood draining from my face and my heart skipped a beat. I desperately tried to calm myself down, telling myself it was just the wind playing tricks or maybe the branches of a tree. I turned up the volume on the TV to drown out the tapping noise. Eventually, it stopped altogether. That was when I heard Grandpa calling me. Are you okay in there? He asked. If you're scared, you don't have to stay there all alone. I can come in and keep you company. This kid is stupid! I smiled and rushed over to open the door, but then I stopped in my tracks. I had goosebumps all over my body. It sounded like my grandpa's voice, but somehow it was different. I couldn't tell what it was, but I just knew. What are you doing? Grandpa asked. You can open the door now. I'm gonna shit, Mom. I'm gonna cry. Because I'm scared. Okay. I glanced to my left, and a chill went down my spine. The salt in my bowls was slowly turning black. I backed away from my door. My whole body was trembling with fear. I fell to my knees in front of the Buddha statue and clenched the piece of parchment tightly in my hand. I started desperately praying for help. Please save me from the 8 feet tall, I wailed. Then I heard the voice outside the door saying, Po, 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 po. You get it. The tapping on the window started up again. I was overcome by fear and I crouched there in front of the statue, half crying and half praying for the rest of the night. I felt like it would never end, but eventually it was morning. The salt in all 4 bowls was pitch black. I checked my watch. It was 7:30 a.m. I cautiously opened the door. Grandma and Kasten were standing outside waiting for me. When she saw my face, Grandpa Grandma burst into tears. "I'm so glad you're still alive," she said. "Why would you tell a child that, first of all? You're gonna scare it." I went downstairs and was surprised to see my father and mother sitting in the kitchen. Grandpa came in and said, "Hurry up, we've got to get going." We went to the front door and there was a large black van waiting in the driveway. Several men from the village were standing around it, pointing at me and whispering, "That's the boy." The van was a 9-seater, and they put me in the middle, surrounded by 8 men. Kay San was in the driver's seat. The man on the left looked down at me and said, "You've got yourself in quite a spot of trouble. I know you're probably worried. Just keep your head down and your eyes shut. We can't see it, but you can. Don't open your eyes until we've got you safely out of here." Grandpa drove in front, and my dad's car was following behind. When everyone was ready, our little convoy started moving. We were going fairly slow. After 20 kilometers per hour, or maybe less, after a while, Kay-san said, "This is where it gets hard," and started muttering. I don't even know. Okay, she started saying a prayer under her breath. That's when I heard the voice. Po, 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 po. I clenched the parchment Kay-san had given me tightly in my hand. I kept my head down, but I peeked outside. Why would you open your eyes? Even though they told you not to. I saw a white dress fluttering in the breeze. It was moving along with the van. It was 8 feet tall. She was outside the window, but she was keeping pace with us. Then suddenly she bent down and peered into the van. "No," I gasped. The man behind me shouted, "Close your eyes!" I immediately shut my eyes as hard as I could. I tightened my grip on the piece of parchment. Then the tapping began. Tap, 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 tap. The voice became louder. Po, 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 po. There was tapping on the windows all around us. All of the men in the van were startled and on edge, I don't even know how to say the word, mumbling nervously to themselves. They couldn't see 8 feet tall and they couldn't hear her voice, but they could hear tapping on the windows. Okay. Kay-san started praying louder and louder until she was almost shouting. The tension inside the van was unbearable. After a while, the tapping stopped and the voice disappeared. Kay-san looked back at us. "I think we're safe now." All of the men around me breathed a sigh of relief. The van pulled over to the side of the road and the men got out. "They're stupid!" They transferred me into my dad's car. My mother held me close and tears were running down her cheeks. Grandpa and my father bowed to the men and they went on their way. Kay-san came to the window and asked me to show her the piece of parchment she had given me. When I opened my hand, I saw that it had gone completely black. "I think you will be okay now," she said. "But just to be sure, hold on to this for a while." She handed me a new piece of parchment. After that, we drove straight to the airport and Grandpa saw us safely on the plane. When we took off, my parents breathed a sigh of relief. My father told me he had heard about 8 feet tall before, years ago. His friend had been liked by her. The boy disappeared and was never seen again. My father said that there were other people who had been liked by her and lived to tell about it. They all had to leave Japan and settle down in 4 countries. They were never able to go back to their homeland. She always chooses children as her victims. They say it's because children are dependent on their parents and family members. This makes them easier to deceive. I'm scared. Makes it easier to deceive when she poses as their relatives. Oh my god. He said the men in the van were all blood related of mine, and that's why they had all been sitting all around me, and why my father and Grandpa had been driving in front and in the back. It was all done to try and confuse the 8 feet tall girl. It took a while to contact everyone and get them all together, so that was why I had to be confined in a room all night. He told me that one of the little Jizo had been broken, and that was how she escaped. It gave me the chills. I was glad I can't read. I'm sorry if I can't read. I was glad when we finally got back home. All of this happened more than 10 years ago. I haven't seen my grandparents since then. I haven't been able to do so much as set foot in the country afterwards. I would call them every few weeks and talk to them on the phone. Over the years, I tried to convince myself that it was just an urban legend, that everything that happened was just some elaborate prank, but sometimes I'm not so sure. My grandfather died 2 years ago. When he was sick, he wouldn't allow me to visit him, and he left strict instructions in his will that I wasn't to attend his funeral. It was all very sad. My grandmother called a few days ago. She said that she has been diagnosed with cancer. She missed me terribly and wanted to see me one last time before she died. Are you sure, Grandma? I asked. Is it safe? It's been 10 years, she said. All that happened a long time ago. It's all forgotten. You're all grown up now. I'm sure there won't be a problem. But what about the 8 feet tall? I said. For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard a deep, masculine voice saying, "Po, po, po." That was kind of scary, to be honest. But I'm actually scared. Let me just exit out of that. Okay. Alright, y'all. So basically, if you guys didn't understand the story, well, you guys can go check it out. It's on Instagram. And they have really good, like, Instagram threads and stuff. Like, they have, like, good scary stories. So you guys should go check that out, because they're interesting. But yeah, guys, give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see you guys next video.